welcome to the Jeff Finch Experiment. Today is Sunday. I am here with a new guest, someone who has not been on the show yet, my old friend who I've known since like kindergarten.
Yeah, long time.
Brian Barsottini. Brian, hello, Brian.
Hello.
And I'm here with Nick Lewis again. He's decided to come over. Hey, Nick, what's up?
Since I no longer have top billing.
You haven't had top billing for a long time.
I know, still. Dick.
So the reason we got together today, a couple reasons. Nick and I had already decided that today was a good day to get together because we wanted to talk about the election.
There's no way you could pass this up.
Yeah, I mean,
It's one of those events you have to do.
It's the biggest story on earth. Everybody and their mother is doing some sort of commentary, reaction video, election thing, or they're out, beating the shit out of red voters. But
my president.
Yeah, you're not my president.
Not my president.
Not my president.
Better dead than red.
Exactly. And last night we were hanging out watching the UFC 205 Conor McGregor fight and whatnot, and which was a pretty good pay-per-view. Mm-hmm. And Brian was there, and we were chatting, and Brian's like, "Hey, when are you gonna have me on?" I'm like, "Come over tomorrow." So here we are. And hello.
Yeah, it's very unlike me. I'm not usually the type of person who just does something sporadic like that. I'm usually, okay, let's plan it out. Let me talk
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah.
Look at my
Typical
calendar.
paranoid.
Well, I tried to do that. Like, you mentioned it, like, you were kind of a dick about it. You're like, so when are you going to call me to be on the podcast? What's going on, Jeff? Come on now.
Then you call me out. You threw down the gauntlet. Like, how about tomorrow? I'm like, oh, okay. I guess I got to.
Well, I was like, I asked you, if I remember correctly, and I had been drinking last night, so I could be wrong, but if I remember correctly, I think I said something along the lines of, so when are you free? And you're like, whenever. I'm like, well, Nick's coming over tomorrow, 12 o'clock, come over. And you're
That's
like,
how it went down.
Okay, you know what? That sounds good. And about 2 minutes later, you're like, you know what? Yeah, I'll definitely come over. That sounds great. I just told the wife I'm coming over. I didn't bother asking.
Yeah.
That's usually a bad
You
choice.
rebel.
Well, I thought, too, it was interesting. You started this whole podcast after we had a talk.
Yes, we did.
Sims Bowling.
Yeah, back in like April.
Yeah.
I was considering doing it.
And I was like, because I was thinking about doing it too. And we had this talk, and then you started it. I'm like, I feel like it should be me, You should be giving me credit. He should be giving me credit for every intro.
Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe I don't know. I'll start putting you on the description of the videos.
No, I was pretty stoked to see that you did that though.
Well, thank you.
So
yeah, that was kind of a thing. Like, I actually about 5 years ago had caught the bug to do it. I've always wanted to get into radio. Mm-hmm. It's something that I always enjoyed listening to radio. I always liked talk radio. I especially like comedy. Mm-hmm. I grew up listening to like the DVE morning show and Howard Stern and stuff like that. Stern's a little too crazy for me to do that sort of thing.
Is he still crazy?
As far as I know, I haven't listened to him in years. He's on Sirius now, and I'm not paying for Sirius just for Howard Stern. But, especially with the internet now, you can get all the music you want practically for free with, Pandora and all them. And it's something I wanted to do. I went to school at CCBC for multimedia, radio and video, and really enjoyed it, but never really found a job in it. It's not the kind of thing that's like that active in this area, and I really didn't want to move to New York or LA or Chicago because that's where you'd have to go. And, I kind of caught the podcasting bug some years back. I bought Podcasting for Dummies, the book, and read it cover to cover, and was like learned a bunch about microphones and mixers and how to put together a podcast. And of course it's even more different now with the internet being so much more prevalent and so big and such a wide reaching audience that it didn't have even 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. Especially with social media and YouTube really taking off. And, I'd been kicking the idea around, and I had thought about it, and the time that you and I hung out at the bar, you mentioned doing, I think you said you were thinking about doing like a vlog, like a video.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, if Brian wants to do that, that's something I could get into too. And the chips just kind of fell. Facebook released their live thing right after, literally days after that. Yeah. That was early April when you and I hung out that night. Literally days later, Facebook made it available for people to do the Facebook Live. Yep. And I was putzing around with it and started doing it and got a huge response. Like, I was getting 50 views live. Mm-hmm. And I was like, holy cow, people like this stuff. So I came across somebody who had all this equipment and picked up this equipment on the cheap and started putting it together, and me and Nick did some podcasts, had so much fun. And
he put something on Facebook saying like, hey, if anybody wants to come down or whatever, shoot me a message, whatever. I'm like, I'm down.
So Brian, if you said you wanted to do like a vlog,
Yeah.
like
yeah.
what was like what sort of thing did you want to do? Like, did you want to do topical based or like a hey today I did this type thing or?
Well, no, I wanted to do a topical base. There's a lot of like issues out there. I follow people on like YouTube and whatnot that I hear commentary on, and I find it insightful and good, but it's always from a perspective that I don't come from. And so I was trying to like
Give us an example.
well, like feminism. Okay, that's huge. That's a huge issue. You go to YouTube, just type in feminism, social justice.
You get a million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
The SJWs.
and I have strong feelings about those issues. If you ever want to talk, if you want to get into feminism,
We absolutely can. We can get in all those. I
Um,
love these sort of social justice, social topics. So like, but just in general, as we're discussing, so feminism is a good example.
An example.
You know, politics obviously would be a great thing. I know that you're kind of a politically minded guy. You know, and that's one thing that I think that you and I and Nick will have a really great conversation with today. Is there anything else that you really want to get into? Like, you're a musical guy. I mean, would you?
Music? Well, I don't know if I do a vlog about it. It's more of I guess, almost a private thing. That's my
Gotcha.
music. But with those issues, they always come from a secular kind of worldview. And so if you come across Christian, me being a Christian, you come across Christian people talking about issues, it's usually terrible. It's really bad. Like, it's just like, it's almost facepalm. Like,
A lot of the times it's very close-minded.
yeah, it's closed-minded, and they don't think things through, and I'm poking holes through their arguments, and it just bugs me. So I'm like, oh, maybe I should just do like a vlog about commentary, or do a commentary on issues, but do it from
Your perspective.
Maybe play
perspective.
devil's advocate.
yeah.
That's always a fun perspective to take on a lot of things. Even if it's something if you agree 100% with somebody on a topic, it's fun to play devil's advocate because it leads to good conversation.
Yeah.
And when I was here with Chuck in our last podcast, I was kind of being that guy a little bit with him. Chuck is very religious. And he was mentioning his religion not only because he likes to write religious music, which I'm not a fan of, but it is what it is. And his music's okay. Songwriting's okay. But, I kind of fought him a little bit on it when we were talking about faith in general. He made mention of, I can't remember exactly what we were talking about now. But, like, I brought up, like, hey, Chuck, just to kind of be the devil's advocate, you're talking about faith and religion and these people doing the right or wrong thing. Well, what about, the Crusades?
Yeah.
when the Catholic Church literally, marched east and murdered millions of Muslims. And he kind of looked at me like, I can't believe you just brought that up.
I think he also said it's like there's a difference between religion and faith. It's like,
yeah, and that was really...
So my guess, like, that's one of those where you need someone to play devil's advocate. It's like, no, technically, is that really kind of the same thing?
I honestly thought that was brilliant when he said that. He said that, his thought is that he doesn't think that religion and faith are the exact same thing. He's like,
I can understand that.
you can follow religion as a way of life, but your faith in God and how you feel about your God, whomever...
Or how close you feel with God.
is a different thing wrapped up in that religion. Faith is a part of religion, but religion is not a part of faith, I think is what he was getting at. And that was
that
quite
makes
insightful
sense.
from Chuck. I liked it.
I think sometimes people use that argument for just semantic reasons, trying to, or in a rhetorical fashion, like, I can't answer that, so I'm just going to say it.
That's true, and that's...
I'm not saying that's what Chuck did. I haven't heard.
No. That's a pretty common thing for a lot of people on a lot of subjects to do.
Yeah.
It's like I'll use another example. My Canadian friend Matt brought up what was it called? Godwin's Law. Are you familiar with this? Or Godwin's, what is it? Godwin's Law, I think is what it's called. Basically, and I've looked it up since then. Basically, it's the and believe me, Brian, you've heard about this. It basically states that over the course of time in an argument, the longer an argument gets, eventually somebody's going to make a comparison to Hitler or the Nazis.
Well, no, see, I disagree. I disagree with that law because there are times where that's an appropriate comparison.
Agreed.
And sometimes when you do that, people are like, well, that's Godwin's Law. I'm like, no. If I would just do it as
it's valid. It's very valid in certain conversations.
An ad hominem kind of, just beat down the man. Well, you're a Nazi.
Well, that's the big thing right now with the whole Trump versus Hillary debate. Okay, and that's what brought it up in our previous conversation. You know, a lot of people before the election, and you're hearing it a lot more now, but before the election, it was, oh, Trump, he's going to be a Nazi. He wants to close all the borders. He wants to take all of our guns. He wants to be
future leader of the Fourth Reich, according to Wikipedia.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that people were saying, and that is completely Godwin's law. I mean, you know, just because this guy has these views doesn't necessarily make him a Nazi. We're not going to all start wearing swastikas and marching around the city. You know,
he might be turned into Mussolini.
No, I don't think so either.
Fascist either.
Yeah, he's definitely not fascist. I mean, he's not going to murder people at his kitchen or dining room table during dinner.
He has a look, though.
But he does kind of have the look. I'll give you that. But, you know, that's just
shave his head.
The argument is completely invalid. Like, I mean, I understand why people make that connection because it's a hot button issue with Trump, and it's real easy to compare somebody to the worst person in the world.
Lazy.
That's exactly right. It's lazy.
There's a pocketbook definition. It's like, oh, you're a Nazi. It's just, you know.
You don't have to think things through. You don't have to think of the details or the
yeah, it's an easy way for you to, quote, win your argument. Justify your thought. Yeah. Exactly.
I don't like Hillary, and I don't have to just compare her to somebody else. I don't like her because of what she stands for.
You're a misogynist.
And I don't like there's things about Trump.
You're automatically a feminist hater. Do you beat your wife? Is that that's the kind of person you are if you don't like Hillary?
Well, she didn't listen.
That's the exact argument that people give. And that's why this election is so polarizing, because people... And it's not just this election, it's always been like this. But people tend to focus on one or two things about a certain candidate and just assume that the candidate's the worst person because of that. And yes, I do think that Trump might be a little racist.
Well, what was that? You had mentioned it before. So this generation is the share button generation?
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
In one of our podcasts a couple times ago.
Basically, what it is people... With social media now, social media has completely changed the political landscape.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for social media, Obama probably wouldn't have got voted in as president originally.
I think he would have.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that he definitely wouldn't have, but, you know, he got a huge crowd behind him. I mean, you know, everybody knew that the black vote was going to gravitate for him because he's black. He's very articulate. He's very intelligent.
He's funny. He's a charismatic guy.
He's a very charismatic guy. I mean, he's been on Saturday Night Live. He's been on, you know,
he's funny. He's really good at it. Like,
if he was conservative, I would love him.
Yeah.
Like his personality and everything is wonderful, but that didn't qualify him to be the president.
No.
He won the election. It is what it is. He's destroyed our country.
Well, I think there's issues though that. I don't want to paint his supporters with a broad brush either, though. Like, they just liked his character and they voted him because of it.
Well, that's the exact same reason that people voted against Trump.
Yeah.
They didn't listen to most of his issues. They didn't like his character because they already had a preconceived notion of who he was. Granted, no presidential candidate ever in history, except maybe for Hillary Clinton, had the kind of was in the public eye for as long as much as Trump and Hillary have been.
Yeah.
And it hurt both of them.
Or being in the public eye prior to the election.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, 30 years with Hillary.
I mean, Trump has been a public spectacle since the mid '80s.
Yeah. And
everybody has known who Hillary is since 1991, since her husband first started, you know, ramping up his run for the presidency. And, you know, I shouldn't say everybody. Those two thought that would help them. Like, hey, I'm popular. This is automatically going to get me some votes. But it really hindered the both of them.
Well, it's happened with other like people knew Reagan.
That's true.
Before he became president,
he was an actor and whatnot. But you know, people didn't know much about him politically either. He obviously worked his way up through the system, though. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? He was governor of California for many years and all that.
Yeah.
And even though Hillary does have the political background, I don't think she has had the qualifications to truly run something. She was Secretary of State. She didn't earn that position.
Didn't do well at it either.
It didn't do very well at it either. You know, she was appointed to it. You know, she didn't get elected first lady. You know, she did get elected senator.
Yeah.
You know, that's probably, I don't know if it's true, but that might be the only elected office she ever won.
Yeah. No, I can't think of anything else.
I don't know of anything else, unless she did something in Arkansas before we were, you know, but she was known as a lawyer then. Well, not really a politician.
Look at her daughter. She hasn't done anything herself. It's only because of who her parents were.
Well, now they're ramping her up, supposedly.
Really?
I read an article the other day. They're thinking about ramping up
Chelsea Clinton.
For future public office.
I saw a hilarious photo of her the other day. She has some choppers on her, some big teeth, and she looks a little like Prince Charles.
Better than Mr. Ed.
I made a comment. I think it was one of our friends' moms actually posted on Facebook this very unflattering close-up picture of Chelsea Clinton smiling, and she just had these big old horse teeth and just totally looked like Prince Charles. I'm like, are we sure Bill's her dad? Because she looks like Hillary with Prince Charles's teeth. I'll have to find the picture. It was funny. But as Nick had brought up, I made this comparison, Brian, on a previous podcast. We were chatting about the election and how people are seeing the candidates and how people are forming their opinions of said candidates. Me personally, when I go to vote or when there's an election coming up, I like to read as many issues as possible. I then make a decision on which issues are more important to me personally and then judge there, okay?
Yeah.
So the problem I have is that people will pick one issue and vote solely on that. And I hate that.
Well, I might push back on that a little bit.
Okay. Just to finish my thought real quick.
Yeah.
The two biggest issues that you see that with is guns, whether it's for or against gun control, and the other one's abortion.
Yeah.
Okay. And I actually split the aisle when it comes to those. I am a little more on the pro-choice, but I'm definitely for guns, not gun control, but guns and freedom to be able to use guns.
You're a libertarian.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I am in the middle. I'm more of a moderate. Gary Johnson would have been my guy if he wasn't. I didn't care. Yeah, he was kind of adult. Yeah, and it's a shame because he's an articulate guy and he did a really great job as governor of New Mexico and whatnot. But that's what is Aleppo?
What is
this Aleppo? What is this Jeopardy? What is it? Yes, $300 to you, Gary Johnson.
It's close to a leopard. It's similar to a leopard.
No, a leper. Yeah, like the skin falls off.
No.
But as you're going to continue, Brian.
Out literally.
Yeah, you're right with those two issues. Those seem to be the two issues.
They are the big ones. And there's a couple other ones that are pretty big that are upcoming. Legalizing marijuana is a huge one right now.
We need Hillary because
10 years
we need
is really going to be
president.
That's more of that's not really an issue. That's more of a social justice thing. Like we already have a black president. We need a woman.
That's a smaller percentage of the populace.
I agree.
There's a lot of people saying that's why we need to vote Hillary.
If the election had been held 2 years ago, gay marriage would have been the big hot button issue. That has pretty much.
That's done.
I don't think it's done. People still argue against it, but I mean it's legal and it is what it is.
It's like abortion, and people still argue against it 35 years.
That's true. I didn't think about that. And people, it's just if you're gay and you want to get married and you want to experience the ups and downs of matrimony, you should be completely free. That's what I think. I don't care what the Bible says. I know you're deeply religious as compared to me. I am not a religious guy for the most part. But if people want to do what they want to do, I'm okay with it. They don't need to. What I don't like is the shoving of the gay culture in my face. You know what I mean? I don't like, you see some of these very flamboyant people on TV, and hey, that's their attitude. That's how they like to talk. But I also exercise the choice to just change the damn channel, and that's what I do, and that's why I don't argue with these people. I don't like it, so I don't watch it.
My thing is, I just don't like the idea that I could be accused of calling somebody, somebody's a homosexual, a homo or something like that, and I automatically lose my job, even if I was accused of it. Said, I heard he called me a homo, so I automatically get fired just because there's a suspicion that I did say that.
Yeah, that kind of comes back to the whole triggered thing with social justice.
Yeah.
Everybody's upset and everybody's super PC, and that's something that is a problem.
Well, but here's the thing about this election is that I feel there's a pushback against that. I mean, Donald Trump was just elected to be president. And he is the least PC guy.
Very much so. You're absolutely right. I mean,
people are just so sick of this, the PC culture, and I think that's part of why he got elected.
I think that is tied with being the single biggest reason that he won, along with government corruption.
Yeah.
The government is incredibly corrupt. People, and Hillary is fine example of this.
She's the poster child.
She is the poster child for it at this, in our generation.
Yeah.
She is well known. It is documented, proven. There were 33,000 emails that were mysteriously deleted or printed by her Hispanic maid that had to do with her taking money for speeches and whatnot that she gave, and in turn using that money not only to run for president, which is what it is when it comes to funding, but
you keep the Clinton Foundation out of this.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
she's Secretary of State and taking money from foreign governments and doing them favors.
That's the worst part. Doing favors for foreign governments, and the fact that we have identified who some of these foreign governments are is what really upsets a lot of people.
Saudi Arabia.
Those are the big ones.
Yeah, and she's the champion of feminism at the same time taking money from places like Qatar and Saudi Arabia.
Exactly. They have the Sharia law over there where women have no rights. Women are raped and beaten regularly. These are regular things that happen over there. I mean, their women can't show their faces. I mean, how can you be the face of feminism in the world and accept payment from these extremists?
Well,
I don't get it.
Double standard, ladies and gentlemen.
Because there is a hierarchy of oppression with social justice warriors. If you're brown, no matter what you think, it's because if there's anything wrong with you, for lack of a better term, it's because you're a victim. So, they love Muslims. Ask social justice warriors about Islam. Oh, it's a religion of peace, and it's such a great thing. And when you start talking about like terrorism stuff, then that's when Islamophobia comes up. Stuff like that.
Oh, you're a racist because you think that all Muslims are going to bomb people.
They're not white. If they were white people doing this, then they'd be like, this is what the white patriarchy does.
Well, what happens whenever you have white Americans who claim to be Muslim they do crimes and they kill people under the name of...
Well, there's only been one main guy I can think of that did that. He was an American citizen when he got drone strike and killed. What was his name?
I can't remember.
And it was a big issue because he's an American citizen. You have to give him due process, and we didn't do that.
There was also this was back.
It was that old soldier or whatever. He defected.
That's who I'm thinking of.
Oh yeah.
I do not remember John something. American white guy named John. Who thought of that? But yeah, he left the United States like in 2003, I think, when the Iraq War started.
Yeah.
And he joined the Al Qaeda ranks. I'm pretty sure we caught him and killed him.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we did too.
But that's an example as well. Somebody whose beliefs were against the American populist beliefs, and he has the right to think that way, but it doesn't give him the right to murder Americans. It just doesn't. And that goes for any extremist. And it doesn't have to be Muslim extremists.
Or even protesters.
Yeah, but there's not a lot of other extremists in the world doing that.
Not anymore, no. A couple hundred years ago, maybe.
Not even then.
Maybe even longer.
We're talking about Crusades. If you're going to bring that up, that's 1,000 years ago.
It was like the 1200s.
Last one was like 1300s.
Yeah, a little less now.
So exactly. But the argument that I made against the Crusades thing in my previous podcast was that that's just it. It was 800 years ago. The world was a different place. There was no internet. There was no mass communication. There was no spread of ideas very quickly.
Yeah.
If you wanted to spread your ideas, you took over a country. You took over a civilization, and then you would spread your ideas.
Yeah.
With the exception of Christianity 1,000 years prior to that, where it was a peaceful thing. People, missionaries, I guess you could say, the followers of Jesus would go out and explain the religion, and it sounded great to people. They loved it, and they would convert.
Yeah.
1,000 years later, during the Crusades, it became this thing. The Christian religion then became a huge force in the world and decided they're going to impose their will on people.
Well, there's a lot of nuances with the Crusades.
I mean, just in general.
Whitewash it like a little too much in modern history.
Okay.
It is a reaction to the growing of Islam with because in 600 or 7th century with Muhammad. The spreading of Islam was done through the sword, and so the spreading of Islam
through the scimitar.
Yeah, it was done through violence, and at first I think the Crusades was a reaction against it to they started coming into Christian lands, like into Jerusalem.
Yeah, they were moving into Europe and whatnot,
and Turkey, Christian.
I agree.
area.
It was a reaction.
So it's a reaction to. It's not just like I hate them I'm trying to think of like a crusader with like a Confederate flag on. It's like, I hate them.
Or no, dress up as you.
them Muslims.
A nice template.
Those Muslims.
Those Muslims.
And their Mohammeds.
Or you have
with their crazy curved swords.
Yosemite
and their
Sam,
camels.
Yosemite Sam dressed up in a Crusaders uniform or whatever. So I hate Muslims.
Oh, I hate Muslims.
My biscuits burning.
But that's how we portray it, though. I think a lot of times it's like you have redneck crusaders going into.
Yeah, I mean that is true,
and it's not necessarily. Now there are times that did happen. I'm not going to lie about that, but to just say like, well, then Christians just hate Muslims is
the way that you're speaking about the Crusades and how Christians handled that. And the way you're defending it is precisely how a lot of today's social justice warriors present the Muslim faith. They defend it in that way. Oh, well, they attacked us on 9/11 as a response because our government is oppressing them all the way over there in Saudi Arabia and Qatar and Dubai and all these places. It's like, no, I disagree with that. The reason that they were attacking us and some of the other major countries in the world, there's Spain, France, whatnot.
They hate the West.
They hate the West. They hate our way of life. It is invading their way of life. They don't like that we're, pushing. What's the word I'm looking for? We're pushing the. I almost want to say liberal agenda, but compared to what they are, even the conservatives in our country, the liberals,
we're crazy hippies.
We're crazy hippies. We are pushing issues such as homosexuality as being okay. Mm-hmm. It's okay for your wife to go out and get a job and earn a living.
Yeah.
It's okay for the father to stay home with their children. These are things that, you and I have grown up accepting.
It's okay for the Jews to have their own homeland.
That's a huge one. That's probably maybe the biggest factor with a lot of this Muslim hate in the last 50 years was Israel.
It's Great Britain.
Okay.
Because after the war, they promised the Jews that they would give them a homeland. So it's like, okay, here you go. You can have this place. You can call it whatever you want.
And then they just took Jerusalem away from the Muslims and said,
wait a minute.
Here you go.
There's already Muslims that live there. Just push them around. Pull them out of the way. We promised them.
That's a good point. And, it obviously upset them. And they managed to, over years and years and years of, and money, too. I mean, being the fact they have all the oil and they've been getting all this money, they're able to fund these sort of terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda and now ISIS and whatnot. They're able to make a stand. And, there were a lot of terrorist attacks that happened before 9/11. 9/11 was just the big one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it kind of opened the Americans' eyes to what's really going on over there. It was during the first Iraq war. Now, we were pretty young at that time. We were 7 years old or whatever. We didn't think of it this way, but our parents probably did. They thought of it as, it's over there. All that fighting that Israel, Egypt and Saudi Arabia and Iraq and Iran, that's all over there. It's not going to hurt us over here at home. Sure, we'll send our guys over there to defend Kuwait. When it's all said and done, we'll squash it and we'll never hear from them again. Mm-hmm. Well, 2 years later, 2 years later, the World Trade Center gets bombed.
But it still didn't have the same effect.
Well, no, because 3,000 people didn't die and it wasn't all over TV.
Yeah, but I still felt, until our senior year in high school, I still felt everything was over there.
Yeah, I mean, I felt that way. Even when
there were terrorist attacks, it was still like, well, that's crazy.
That's their problem, not our problem.
But that's so rare, how bad could it be, And then 9/11 happens, you're like, oh.
And then the influx of violence afterwards.
Yeah.
I mean, and not a lot of it here. I mean, there haven't really been any real terrorist attacks here of a grand nature. There's been individual attacks, like people bombing movie theaters or whatever it was.
But it's been domestic terrorism.
For the most part, yes.
I don't think there's a lot.
Except for maybe the Boston Marathon bombing was a pretty big deal.
And there'll be some, it's like they'll say, that they're, I'll do this in the name of ISIS, but there's no... Fine, it's like there's no real connection with ISIS.
True.
It's been found.
Well, I mean, before ISIS really became big, I mean, there were the DC snipers. That was a big one. Yep. Those guys did that in the name of, in the name of Muhammad, I guess you could say, or the name of Allah. Oh, yeah. I mean, the guys both named John Muhammad was the guy's name.
Wasn't it Black Islam, though?
They were black extreme Islamists, like Black Panther types. Nation of Islam. Yeah. I'm trying to think of it. Was it Louis Farrakhan? Yeah.
Farrakhan. I don't know if they were tied to him.
They probably weren't, but, they were doing it in that name.
Okay.
You know what I mean? People just automatically see it as, they're Muslims. Those guys are Muslims. Oh, they're black guys. They're black Muslims. They killed 22 people with sniper rifles. They should fry. I mean, I don't disagree. They should have fried. I'm pretty sure John Muhammad is on
the other one. He was
death
17,
row.
I think.
He was
He was younger. I think he was like.
He was like
15.
16 or something.
But
He
by
was
the
a
time
kid.
he went to trial, I think he was like 17. He was still tried as a juvenile.
Boy, that was a scary thing. I remember watching that every night on the news because it was like 30 Days of Terror or something like that. Every single day they were killing
I think there were
somebody.
people like one was pumping gas in her car.
Yeah, he just picked her off. I think one guy was changing a tire on the side of the road and got picked off. You know, that's scary shit. That's eye-opening stuff. And, you know, go ahead.
There was that shooting at Fort Hood.
Yeah, that was a big one. That was more of a though. Yeah, I mean, the guy I think claimed
to be disgruntled.
Yeah, he was more of a postal worker situation. You know,
I don't recall exactly, but
yeah,
I think
that's what
you're right now that I think about it, though.
there was another one in Indiana where a guy went into work. He was a Muslim and everybody knew it, but he wasn't like he was a regular Joe who just was Muslim. Like, you know, like a you know, we had a friend growing up named Mobeen who was Muslim, but you would never expect him to be a terrorist. He's just a regular guy like us who liked video games and shit.
I never even thought about it growing up, really.
No, you didn't. I mean,
he had darker skin.
I talked to him about it because I was interested in his way of life. But like, this is the kind of guy that the guy in Indiana was. He just went to work one day and, you know, he decided, I'm just going to kill people.
Yeah, that's just a disgruntled.
He just lost his mind.
Yeah, that's not like I was raised in a.
Right. Exactly. It wasn't like he was raised in a Muslim or an Al Qaeda camp or something.
Yeah,
you know, he's not a quote Hitler Youth of the Muslim generation. This was a guy who was just having a really shitty day. Probably found his wife fucking some other guy last night, and you know, went all Shawshank Redemption on him.
Yeah.
Except he actually did it.
Well, yeah, in Shawshank he didn't do it, so.
Oh, they never really said.
No, they say. It
No,
was
they don't.
yeah, there was that one. Remember the one
The
guy?
lawyer fucked him.
Everybody's guilty in here. You didn't know that?
You didn't know
or everybody's innocent in here. Yeah.
Yeah.
You didn't know that? I love that movie.
Everybody loves
So
it.
My
classic.
favorite.
I love that movie too.
My wife's brother never saw that movie until
Really?
about 6 months ago.
It probably
Really?
took me 8 years to see that movie. Every time it would be on TV, it would be on the exact same spot right after sentencing.
Took Andy Dufresne 20 years.
20, and you do
Time and patience.
And he had to
climb through.
crawl through 500 yards of stinking shit that I can't even imagine. 500 yards. That's nearly half a mile. 5 football fields.
Anyway,
Okay, so let's just quote Shawshank the rest of the day. Awesome.
I don't wear my movie quote shirt.
I was over. I changed well, not change topic, but bring something up. I guess you could put it that way. Is it's about the election. Before this election, I was kind of almost in the mindset of like a conspiracy theorist, like Illuminati, like it's already decided anyway.
I felt the same way.
They already know who's going to be president, and that's going to be Hillary Clinton.
I felt the same way, but not because of the Illuminati. I thought because of corruption.
Corruption. Yeah,
I thought that she paid off a lot of things, and you started seeing all these different articles about voting machines. You know, the company that makes voting machines for 20 of the states is owned by George Soros, who was a major contributor to Hillary's campaign, and he also has been on record of saying some really extreme shit about a one world order.
Oh, I know, and I was really like starting to be like, it seems to be legit.
It's believable.
Yeah,
it's
and
believable.
2 people I work with, they told me stories of this election Tuesday. They hit straight Republican ticket. They go to check their vote, and it says Hillary Clinton on their thing. 2 people said that.
I've seen YouTube videos. Of the same thing.
And I'm like, there's no way she's not going to be president. Like it's rigged. It is rigged. This is ridiculous. And then he wins, and I'm like, okay, maybe.
What's funny now is
not rigged.
All of the Hillary supporters who are very upset and protesting and whatnot, and everybody has a right to protest. Okay, I'm just gonna squash that idea right now. Everybody has the right to protest, but
it is until you start acting violent.
Yeah, don't be an asshole.
Others.
Don't be an asshole.
Yeah,
that's whenever you go from being a protester to a criminal.
Did you say bro-tester?
Yes.
I just picture a bunch of big, tall, white, well-built frat boys with backwards hats and vaping. They're popped collars.
Romance, chill.
I'm here to protest. It's brotacular.
Anyway, you were saying
you're supposed to broke for Hillary. Nick, thanks. You took me off topic. I forget what I was going to say. We were talking about corruption and voting, rigged voting. Tons of videos I've seen, a few videos, I should say, not tons, but of machines not working properly and whatnot. But what's funny is everybody was touting that this is going to be a rigged election. Trump's going to lose. It's rigged. The Electoral College is going to somehow screw Trump. Well, I guess you didn't hear that too much until after the election, but that's what people were thinking. And then suddenly Trump wins by the narrowest of margins, truly. I mean, he lost the popular vote, wins the Electoral College, and now it's the other side saying, "Oh, it's rigged. The system is bad. The system is terrible. Our lady didn't win." So it's like, dude, which drum are you beating? Like, you're complaining. First, you're saying, "Oh, no, if Hillary wins, it's not rigged. It's because of the vote." And now you're saying it is rigged.
College classes. I'm protesting. I need a counselor.
Yeah, the election has triggered a
triggering.
There's a
is triggering in a huge population now.
There's a college professor who actually postponed or put off midterms for the people that are upset by Trump winning the election.
Yeah, they all need safe spaces. They need to go hang out in their dorm rooms.
Of America.
It's ridiculous, and it's basically everybody just crying because they lost. That's what it is. You want to claim it's a rigged system. Okay, I understand your claim. Okay, this is the second time this has happened in 16 years where a Democrat won the popular vote, lost the election. Okay,
I still think it's a good thing.
It's still a good thing.
That's another topic.
Well, I mean, that's something we could bring up as well. I mean, the Electoral College right now is the centerpiece of this entire thing right now.
People don't understand it.
People don't understand it, and that's the problem.
That's the reasoning why we have the Electoral College.
I'll just give a quick rundown of the Electoral College and how it works for our listeners. Basically, and most of my listeners probably already know this because I have like 4 listeners and they're all intelligent.
And
so they've probably read it.
And one of them is on live right now.
Yeah, and that's true. The Electoral College, basically, it's designed so that the people in the lesser populated areas of America still have a vote. Mm-hmm. That way, and if you look at the map, I put up on Facebook the other day a map of the red versus blue counties in America. Not so much the states, but the counties broken down. And it's very obvious that just about every major city, every urban hub in America voted blue. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
That's more than 50% of our population in those blue areas. Think about that. Probably 3% of the total area of the United States is represented blue, but over 50% of the population was represented there, okay, in terms of votes. That's why you have the Electoral College. That way people in North Dakota and Wyoming and, Kansas.
Delaware.
And Delaware. Hi, I'm in Delaware. I can never ever let that joke go. But it's, these people... What it would be is if you don't have the Electoral College, if it's all popular vote, someone like Hillary, all she has to do is just parade through these cities.
And that's all you do. You don't care about rural areas. You don't care about farms.
And traditionally, in the last 20 years, those metropolitan areas have traditionally been voting blue. So it's no contest for the conservatives.
Yeah.
It really isn't. And, especially a person like Donald Trump, he's going to go to all these cities and do his thing. He's not going to gain that many more votes. Someone like him and conservatives in general, at least during our lifetimes, need the rural vote. Mm-hmm. So, the way the Electoral College is set up, it gives a voice to these other states and other municipalities who are voting. No matter which way they vote, it's giving them a voice and allowing them to have a standing chance in the election.
You do not want to have a pure democracy.
No, you don't.
I saw a video that was talking about that. That's why the Founding Fathers decided they wanted to have an Electoral College so that way it's not just a popular vote because they're afraid of a pure democracy.
Yeah, you don't want just the cities ruling the country.
Yeah, because then you end up with like Rome.
That's why you have our state capitals are not in Philadelphia or New York City. They're in Albany and Harrisburg because you want to give
Springfield, Illinois.
Yeah,
Sacramento.
You don't want power just concentrated in one place.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
It screws everybody else.
It does. You're absolutely right. It takes away the voice of a huge swath of the population. And although I don't think the Electoral College is a perfect system, it's probably the best system going.
Yeah, I don't know how you do it better, to be honest with you.
And if you look at the countries in the world, especially countries in the West, that have a popular vote for their prime ministers, presidents, whatever it may be.
Well, prime minister's different.
True, but none of them do it by a, quote, popular vote. They just don't. That's not how it works.
You elect the
parliamentary
party.
system.
Isn't that how Matt described it?
Say again, Nick?
You elect the his party?
Yes,
Isn't
and
that
then
how Matt described
in
it?
Canada, that's how it works. I don't know if that's how it works in Britain.
Yeah, it's a parliamentary system, basically, that you elect parties, and that whatever party has the majority within the parliament, they get I don't know if they choose or they put up somebody to be prime minister. That's how it works.
So basically, like in England, they have the Liberal and the Conservative parties,
Well, they
right?
have
The Labour Party.
They have
Oh,
Tories.
the Labour Party,
They have the
that's right.
Tories, the Labour, the Conservative, and there's another party too. But it's
not the Liberal Party?
I don't think it might be. I don't know. I think there's 4 parties though.
That definitely sounds like a better system than we have. Only
Yeah, you
because
can
you
make the
have 4
argument for
parties
that.
and there's parity there.
The silly party.
Yeah, but I can't imagine trying to start 4 parties here.
Yeah, the political ads for 2 parties is enough.
I know there would
Enough
be
of a headache, too.
You'd actually just have to. Oh, I can't even imagine. It'd be 23 minutes of political ads and 7 minutes.
And
of
only
speech.
7 minutes of SpongeBob.
Yeah. But
We've been talking for 41 minutes.
really, I
Yeah.
feel like we haven't really started talking about the elections.
That's how it always goes
That's how
with
it
these
rolls, man.
podcasts. We can get to chatting, and it's awesome because you could be an hour in and be like, dude, we didn't even get to the meat. I wrote down 7 things. We've only talked about 1. Okay, well, let's talk about the election then. Okay, I voted for Trump. Nick voted for Trump.
No, I voted for Johnson.
Did you really?
Yes.
I was gonna vote for Johnson.
Yeah, you don't know where Aleppo is? Like, Jesus. I know where Aleppo is, but I don't even watch the news.
I think a lot of people. I didn't really.
But it's
know
like, that's one of those things, like,
before
you're
that
running for
happens.
president, but you don't know a lot of the major thing that's going on in the world.
I know
It's
Syria, but
oh,
I don't know if I
God.
could have told you Aleppo.
I couldn't have either. I knew of Aleppo. I didn't know what was exactly going on at that moment. But that being said, I'm not running for the president of the United
Yeah,
States.
that's another.
either.
I agree.
I just think that both candidates were just this election has just been disgraceful.
Brian, would you like to share who you voted for?
Yeah, it'll open up a whole another conversation.
Go ahead.
Mickey Mouse.
I do a write-in.
Okay. Okay.
I
Harambe?
No,
Harambe 16.
I wish this was a recorded video. I do the
Oh, yeah.
I have one.
Just don't do dicks out for Harambe, please. For the love of God. No hashtag
pour
dicks
something
out
on
for
the floor
Harambe.
for him. Like, here's one for my fallen Harambe.
Okay. So, and that's totally within your right to write somebody in.
It's for religious reasons.
Okay. Understood.
People think I'm a nut job when it comes to this, but I believe we have a king. His name is Jesus. He's an actual king he rules over all nations.
Sure.
And it's the duty of the nation to recognize that. Now, when people say, well, freedom of religion, that's another discussion.
What about separation of church and state?
Well, I'm not saying that you have to become Christian or leave the country or anything like that. But when you say separation of church and state,
Well, then how come the
that
president
means-
has to put his hand on the Bible when he gets sworn in?
Well, you don't have to. There was a president who didn't do it. I can't remember who. And for Christian reasons, because in the Bible we're told your yes is a yes, your no is a no. You don't take oaths. But anywho, but I feel that it's the responsibility of our Constitution to recognize Christ as the King, and because of it, I couldn't take that oath to uphold the Constitution because it's not in there. And if I can't do it, I can't vote for somebody else to do something I can't do.
Okay. I can respect that.
So I do a write-in. I just say Christ is King, and I move on with my life.
Okay.
Well,
Now-
God does get a lot of votes.
Oh, he sure
Came
does.
across.
Yeah.
I don't know if he got as many votes as Harambe this time around, or as many votes as me.
The meme generation that we live in.
Yeah, exactly, and that kind of gets back to what we had mentioned earlier, the share button generation. I'll explain that real quick and then get back to what I was talking about. But with the share button thing, I made mention that nobody reads anymore. Everybody's on the internet. They spend 30 hours a day reading headlines and then making judgments on headlines.
Yeah.
And when you see one of those polarizing headlines, like 4 dead in Benghazi, it's all
Clickbait.
Hillary's fault. Instead of reading the article and realizing how stupid the article is and how untrue most of it is, people just see that and it's not even clickbait.
It's
They don't even hit
sharebait.
the article. It's literally bait. They read the article, they read the headline, and they hit the share button, and then they tell their friends. Then it's shared to 200 other people. Next thing you know, you have a revolution. That's what we're living in right now. So whenever I was getting ready to go to the polls, I was a Gary Johnson guy up until Election Day.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
The reason why I was for Johnson is probably obvious. I couldn't stand Trump or Hillary. I didn't like either one of them. I definitely wanted to vote for Trump more than Hillary, but I couldn't bring myself to vote for him up until election day.
I couldn't draw myself to voting for the lesser of two evils.
That's how I felt as well.
So that's what I was going to do originally. I'm like, I just don't think that's a very good idea.
So what I did was, during election day, I didn't vote until like 4 in the afternoon or something like that. Okay, I voted a little later in the day, maybe not that late, but it was later in the day before I went down and voted. I watched the news. I started seeing some of the exit polls come back, which still favored Hillary. But everything I read and saw said that Pennsylvania really is going to be a battleground state and maybe the state that pushes them over, which turned out it was.
Yeah.
And I really thought about that. I was like, if I do vote for Gary Johnson, that essentially will waste my vote at this point. If I'm living in Wyoming and I vote for Gary Johnson, yes, I'm making a stand, but it doesn't matter because this state's going to vote red no matter what, or blue if you're in California or whatever.
50,000.
I felt that my vote actually was going to count this time, and I've never felt that before in a presidential election.
Yeah.
2004 was the first time we were old enough to vote for a president.
Yeah.
So, ever since then, even though I voted for Bush that year, and I've voted against Obama the other 2 years, I never felt like my vote truly counted, because I was convinced Pennsylvania is going to be blue.
Yeah.
And it has been since 92. Or, excuse me, since 88.
Yeah, 88 was senior.
So this time I felt like my vote counted, so I decided, you know what? If it is going to count, I might as well vote for the person that I would rather see, and that was Trump. I would take Trump over Hillary, and I've been campaigning against Hillary for months.
Yeah, I did my write-in, but I was glad to see Trump over Hillary.
So, let's talk about that. What is it about Trump that you personally felt was the reason why he is your candidate as compared to Hillary? Like what?
Let's give a political outsider a chance.
What, Gary Johnson?
No, I mean with
Trump.
Yeah, with Trump.
Yeah, Gary Johnson is not a political outsider. I mean, he's been governor. He's been like a state senator. I think he's been in he ran for president in 2008, I believe.
It wasn't because he was an outsider. There were two reasons that I'm happy Trump won. One is war with Russia. The way Hillary was talking about Russia, I'm like, you got to calm down.
That is one of my biggust issues as well.
Like that. That's absurd to me. I do not want to go to war with the country over Syria. You want to go into Syria and make safe zones and things like that. I'm more power to you. Okay, but to start calling out the Kremlin like that, it's just dumb to me. It's just, you're beating your chest, and I don't know if you know what you're doing.
It's a dick wagging contest.
Yeah, just calm down there.
You're wagging your dick versus the John Holmes of, leaders. I mean, Vladimir Putin is a BAMF. He's a badass motherfucker.
Putin does not give a crap. And you think he's going to listen to this woman? And I think that actually has a lot
to do with it. Yeah,
he's ex-KGB, bitch.
He's in the mind of a lot of our parents and grandparents, where the woman was the subservient of the relationship, and that's a whole different issue. We kind of talked about that a little bit earlier, but that's where he thinks, and you have to cater to that.
Yeah,
you have to.
Yeah.
Now you don't have to cater to that with the extreme nations like Saudi Arabia because of their views, but somebody like Russia, we think of Russia as more Western than not, and especially Moscow. And you think of Vladimir Putin as a true world power, which he is. Mm-hmm. He has nuclear weapons. He can use them. I don't think he ever will, but he could.
So but the way she's talking, it's just like you're poking a bear.
It's exactly.
Stop doing that.
You're poking the Russian bear.
So that was one, and then two was the Supreme Court justice issue, that this next president's going to appoint 1 up to 3,
possibly 3,
justices. And being a pro-life guy that I am, that was huge for me. Trump did promise. Now, I don't know how trustworthy he really is with anything.
We don't know anything.
Time will tell.
But promising to put pro-life judges in there, and hopefully maybe that they'll overturn.
I thought it was really funny during one of the debates. I can't remember which one. It might have been the third one. They brought up the subject of abortion.
The third one.
And Trump didn't really take the stance of I'm pro-life or pro-choice. I think specifically said
the states
that, well, what he said was the people that I vote, or the people that I will put on the Supreme Court will vote pro life.
Yeah.
And I think he repeated that point, almost to say that the people he will point will be pro-life, but that doesn't mean that's my personal stance on it. That's how I kind of
guarded his
he
answer.
guarded. Yes, thank you.
He because he was trying to go libertarian at one point when he said I'll leave it up to the states, but then they kind of pushed him with the judges. He's like, well, they would be pro-life.
But once again, abortion is one of those massive hot button issues that makes or breaks certain elections.
Yeah.
Oh, I got a good. I got on a good debate on Facebook one morning about that.
About what? About abortion
about
or
the abortion? Yeah. It's
Okay.
like, there's a woman who was a friend of one of my Facebook friends. She was against abortion except under certain rather extreme circumstances, like a rape, or if it'll kill the woman and the child, the unborn child.
Incest would be a good one, but that I can understand that. That's a good platform.
But I countered, it's like, well, who determines that it was? Not if you could just look at it from the rape point of view, who declares that it was a rape?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Is she?
It's like,
was she
really raped?
Was she really raped?
Or
did she go to court?
Or did she get? Or say she's 17, she got pregnant. Her parents found out. It's like, I don't want you having a kid. You're having an abortion. So they go.
They claim rape.
They say rape.
The problem with it is that then people say
you go through.
Yeah, a lot of people might say something like, "Oh, well, if she's found, if the raper is found guilty in court of this rape, then she absolutely has a right to an abortion." Well, when's the last time a court case of high magnitude made it through the court system in less than 9 months?
Yeah.
Or less than 6 months? For the if you don't want to have a third trimester.
And also, they
abortion.
say sexual abuse or sexual molestation and all those types of crimes, similar to that, are some of the highest non-reported crimes in the United States. Because it happens all the time in colleges.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Let's look at like Jerry Sandusky.
Jared Fogle, Subway.
Yeah.
Well, did he
Bill,
actually? I thought he just had the pornography.
I think it was porn mostly.
The pudding guy. Bill Cosby.
Bill Cosby.
The pudding guy.
That took.
You take the pudding pop, you put it in your mouth, and zoom.
He had
this
a
is
career
Bill.
on TV.
This is Bill.
He was more than a
Bill
pudding
likes
guy.
pudding. Putting his dick where it don't belong. Don't be like Bill.
But that was over 40 years ago, and people were now coming forward to it whenever he's on his deathbed.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame. It's a shame that it happened, but it's a shame,
instead
all around.
I love Bill.
Instead of bringing the abortion
too.
issue to the forefront or whatever, I think you need to go more towards bringing awareness for these victims to come forward.
Yes, but people have been beating that drum too for years. And
for decades.
This is a subject you cannot handle on your own.
Here's another thing you got to think about, though. Okay, I'll play devil's advocate a little bit to you there. The human mind has a really funny way of compensating with tragedy and trauma. Okay, and I'm not saying this is always the case. In fact, not usually the case. But there are times when, let's say, a 10-year-old boy who was touched inappropriately by Jerry Sandusky. We'll use that example because that's kind of how that whole thing played out. A 10-year-old boy might completely block that out of his psyche. He might forget that it happened. Or he might see it as not a sexual molestation thing because maybe he was a little young to understand what that is. Maybe he saw it as something that was just, buddy to buddy or, whatever. Unless it was something extreme like sodomy or something like that.
An indication of sodomy, yeah.
The human mind might take 10 or 20 years to realize, holy cow, he touched me inappropriately. That's completely, I didn't realize it when I was 10, but now that I'm 30, I realize.
Makes more sense now.
And you start to feel some of those memories too. You don't always remember everything that happens in the moment.
I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. There are plenty of people who are witnesses to major crimes. Somebody saw somebody else shoot his wife and kill her, yet the witness saw everything that happened, doesn't remember everything that happened. Because, you get either an adrenaline rush or just block it out because it was so traumatic.
You witness a car accident, I think I say you forget 50% of what you saw within the first 5-10 minutes.
Exactly.
After the event.
Exactly. Insurance companies argue that all the time. That's a major argument point when it comes to car accidents and whatnot with insurance companies is, well, he didn't make his testimony until a year and a half after the actual accident. How much is this witness truly saying? You know what I mean? It's the same thing. These people that are coming out of the blue and accusing Bill Cosby, that situation's even tougher to call because they were drugged, a lot of them.
Yeah.
So who are they to say, how can they defend themselves and say, oh, I was raped by Bill Cosby? Well, yeah, okay, you were drugged, so we're not going to accuse him of rape in this particular case. We'll just accuse him of, some sort of
all
other
these
misdeed.
decades later, whenever he's on his deathbed, he'll never see. If he were to be found guilty, he would never do jail time because he'd be in there for less than a year before he dies.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
Your reputation.
So they'll go after his estate.
Yeah, I mean,
Civil court.
but it affects his family.
Yeah,
That's what it comes out to. If he's found guilty, okay, I'm pretty sure he has been found guilty on some of this. I do not doubt that
I don't
a lot
see
of
any
this
way he
happened.
could get out of it,
I
no
truly
matter
feel
what.
a lot of this did happen. I'm
So
not going to say
yes.
100% of the cases, but that being said, it affects his estate. It affects his legacy. It affects his children, because now
They're still alive.
all the Cosby Show. 10 years ago, you couldn't turn on TV without watching a Cosby Show.
My sister used to watch it all the time.
I watched it all the time. It was a wonderful TV show. It was really good. It was a great show. It was a groundbreaking television show.
It was.
For black culture, an upstanding black family, not, good times or.
He was going around for decades afterwards talking to black communities about this. And
yeah, exactly.
Kind of like
and
a healing.
even before that, he did Fat Albert, which was a kid's show. He did his stand-up was clean for the most part, somewhat religious, clean comedy.
My mom went
Ghost
to
Dad.
labor with me by watching Bill Cosby.
Really?
Yeah, she was watching Bill Cosby and laughed so hard she went into labor.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So what I'm getting at is now the Cosby Show, which used to be on syndication on probably 10 different channels, 24 hours a day, there was an amount of money each time that gets played that goes to the Cosby estate.
Yep.
His kids were probably living off of that. Or maybe not living off of it per se,
They were doing fine.
but they were doing well, and that was helping their financial situation. Now, they've paid millions of dollars to defend Bill. So he's, whatever money he had's probably drying up. He can't work anymore. Even if he was physically able to, he wouldn't, because nobody's going to have him come to their comedy club and do a show. Nobody's going to invite him on TV to do
I don't
a
think he's even
spot.
physically able to now.
Well, what I'm saying is, just his reputation alone takes all that earning potential away from him. He can't do it anymore, even if he was able to. You know what I'm saying? That's a huge effect on him and his family and his legacy. Our kids are going to remember Bill Cosby as a rapist, not as this wonderful comedian.
He's done so much for the community.
And
community.
in the community, he was a true humanitarian,
Yeah.
and that's a shame.
But that's on him, though.
It's definitely his fault. I am not defending his actions. That is 110% wrong. You can't do that. You can't rape women. You can't drug women. That being said, it does have an effect. Just the fact that he's old and, they can't throw him in jail. He's going to die if he does anyway. What's the point? It does have an effect. It has an effect on his family and his legacy and his estate. And that's ruining lives at this point. It's ruining the lives of his family. His poor children, who had probably nothing to do with any of that, now are going to be ridiculed the rest of their lives because of what their dad did.
And pretty much the only one of his children is going to luck out is one that was murdered on the side of the road back in the 90s.
That's mean.
Oh no, I'm being serious.
That's true, because he's not around to. Excuse me. That's true, because he's not around
He won't
to
be
see.
facing that ridicule.
Yeah, he won't face that ridicule. But that doesn't mean he's better off. I mean, come on now.
Oh, I know, but what I'm saying is he's the only one that will not be affected by. No,
That's
not
true.
affected by
That's
this.
true.
That's what I'm referring to.
Okay. Brian, you want to stick around for a while? Do another podcast?
Yeah, I'll do another
Do it.
one.
We've been here for an hour, so we'll wrap this
Short
one up.
hour.
Yeah, it was a short hour. It always works out that way. We had some great conversations. I would like to talk a little more about the election. I don't know exactly what topics on the election we didn't hit.
Well, there's some issues I'd like to talk about.
All right, cool. We'll write
I
them
have an
down. We'll take a 10-minute break.
I have
And
an article from Facebook, whatever we can discuss.
okay, cool. So we'll do that. We'll record another one. I'm going to go ahead and stop this one. This has been the Jeff Finch Experiment with Brian and Nick.
And Nick.
Thank you for joining us. Anybody who's listening, just so you know, I'm going to plug some things real quick. Join me on Facebook, Jeff Finch Experiment. Also search me on YouTube. Everything that I do gets posted on there, including, other things that aren't podcast related. I do reaction. I've started to do some reaction videos. I did a reaction video the other day about Nintendo. I am well over 400 views on it. That is the second most view count I've ever had on a video. The only video I ever had that had more was I went to the Steeler victory parade back in 2009, and I got like
another one of
3,500 views on that video that I took.
Did another reactionary video of Joe's mom.
Yeah, well, you don't need a video for Joe's mom. It's just
Happens.
I'm
He's not
asleep
even
at that
here
point.
to defend himself.
Oh, that's the point.
We do this.
He'll listen to this in a week from now.
At
I'll be
least
like,
one reference.
follow me on YouTube.
Dick.
Follow me on Twitter at Finch Podcast. Also, you can email me, jfxpodcast@gmail.com, and look for me on
Podbean.
iTunes and Podbean. I'm up on Podbean. All 18 of our episodes currently are up, and I'm submitted to iTunes as we speak on this day, November 13th. Hopefully in a couple days it'll be available on iTunes.
If the iTunes overlords deem you worthy.
I followed all the protocol there. I followed all the protocol. I made sure that I
iTunes
marked it all as
Illuminati.
explicit. It's okay. So, check me out. Listen to our stuff. Have a good time with it. Thanks for coming, Brian and Nick. And that's it. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.